Welcome to Bible Time. This is the Tuesday edition, and we are doing the daily Bible reading. And today we're looking at Psalms 86, 87, and 88. Psalm 86 is a great psalm. It's a favorite of mine. It's a prayer of David. And one of the things that's highlighted in this prayer is God's sovereignty. God's sovereignty. He uses the word Lord repeatedly throughout here, and the Hebrew word translated Lord here is the word Adonai, which speaks of his power, his sovereignty. And David refers to himself as his servant. He's the Lord, I'm the servant. He's the sovereign one, I'm coming to him. And he's requesting that the Lord respond to his requests based on God's character. You'll notice that he says, "For you, O Lord, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love to all who call upon you." I'm calling upon you, and Lord, I'm appealing to your character. I'm the servant. I'm appealing to you as the Lord. I'm appealing to your character. But that what that says to you and me is how important it is that we really know him. That if we're really appealing to him based on his character or based on what we want. Verse 11 says, "Teach me your way, O Lord, that I may walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name." Your name representing all that you are. And so it requires that we really know him. We can appeal to him. We recognize he's Lord, he's sovereign. We appeal to him, but we appeal to him based on his character, which means we really need to know him and know his character. And the good news is he's revealed himself to us. Verse 15 says, "But you, O Lord, are a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness." Now, does that sound familiar? Do you know where he got that from? He got that from Exodus 34:6. That's when God revealed his glory to Moses. You remember that account? And this is what God said. He said to him, that I am a God who's merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. That's a statement that's repeated throughout the Old Testament. That was something that they all pointed back to, is this is what we know to be true about God. And so David is appealing to God based on what God has already revealed about himself. That's an important thing for you and me to remember as we come to God with our requests, as we go to him in prayer. Now, Psalm 87 continues this idea of God's sovereignty, and it talks about the preeminence of Mount Zion, or Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. And God is the place that God had sovereignly picked. He founded it, it says in verse 1. "On the holy mount stands the city he founded." God founded. And it's pointing to the time when God sovereignly will restore his people Israel. And this place, Jerusalem, Mount Zion, is going to play a significant role in that future restoration. And this is a historically significant place. You can remember back in Genesis 22, this is the place God sent Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. And you can remember in the time of David, this is the place where God told him that the temple would be built. David purchased this piece of land, that this would be the place where the temple would be built. And in Ezekiel 43, you can see this is the place where the Lord is going to come back, establish his kingdom, and reign there from Mount Zion in Jerusalem. So God in his sovereignty has chosen this place, this particular place, made it a special place. It's been special in the past. It's going to be a special place in the future because God has sovereignly decreed that that's the place. And so we see God's sovereignty, and we recognizing him when we come to our appeals. We recognize God's sovereignty in working through history. And then in Psalm 88, the writer is suffering. I mean, you can read that and suffer and see the suffering that he's experiencing. But what you recognize here is that suffering comes from God's sovereign hand. And the writer recognizes that this is God that is doing this. But also, here's the thing that we don't think about. We think about suffering coming at God's sovereign hand. But God is equally sovereign over the removal of that suffering. Did you ever think about it that way? And so you should be encouraged to cry to him for relief, because he brought it, he can remove it. And that's what you see the writer doing. In verse 1, it says, O Lord God of my salvation, I cry out day and night before you, crying out day and night. See, he doesn't have a fatalistic view. It's not like, well, God's bringing this suffering. I guess I just have to endure it. Woe is me. No, he cries out day and night to relief. And in verses 10 through 12, he asks 4 rhetorical questions. It says, do you work wonders for the dead? No. Do the departed rise up and praise you? No. Is your steadfast love declared in the grave, or your faithfulness in Abaddon? No. Are your wonders known in the darkness, or your righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? No. And so what he's asking is for God to restore him, to help him before he dies. And so you can see this is a really strong appeal to God, but it's based on the fact that God is the one who's sovereign. God can relieve him of his sufferings. But the most important thing that the writer wants, and this is the thing you and I should take note of, is you can tell he feels rejected by God. Oh Lord, verse 14, why do you cast my soul away? Why do you hide your face from me? What he wants most of all, more than even the removal of the suffering, in his heart, he desires to have that restored relationship with God. And it's not that he's denying that he deserves the suffering, that this is coming from God on him, but what he wants is the restored relationship with God. It's not that he's lost the relationship. It's not that he's been cut off from God, but it's the relationship needs restoring, and that's what he wants most of all. What an important lesson for you and me to learn. All these things about God's sovereignty, appealing to him based on the sovereignty, looking at history from the perspective of God's sovereignty, and even dealing with our suffering in regards to God's suffering. What a great God we have, and what good instruction we have received today, and we'll get more tomorrow on Bible Time.